and will miss his support for Utah museums and at the educational impact they provide for Utah students, teachers, and citizenry. I remember attending a public education appropriations subcommittee during the fiscal downturn in 2008 and recall Senator Stephenson saying something to the effect of that in times like these, it's when we need to depend on our educational allies to pick up the slack while other programs are being cut. We would be cutting off our nose to spite our face and shortchanging our students by cutting off access to the vital programs that these organizations provide. And as Cecile mentioned this morning, Utah is special in the relationship that our museums have with the school system. To date, no other state has a cooperative program like the POTS, which is Professional Outreach Program to Schools, that provides arts programming, or IC, the Informal Science Education Enhancement, that works hand in hand with schools in the state. And Senator Stephenson wanted me to make sure and tell you that last year the IC organization served 735,000 students statewide. That's the number of students in the state. The museum community of Utah is losing a strong champion for who we are and what we do. We thank him for his past and continued support of museums in the state and their educational value to the citizenry of Utah. And accepting on behalf of Senator Stephen is Vikrant Ragula. Vikrant Ragula is a 2018 graduate of Skyline High School. He was a General Sterling Scholar for 2018 and also the Sterling Scholar for Business and Marketing. He's won numerous awards at State Science Fair and was on the Student Advisory Board for the Science Fair, whose mission is to get more kids into STEM education and science fairs. He's the founder and director of Ragula Innovations, a high-tech incubator. Vikrant and his twin Kanishka visited several museums, don't be jealous, the Leonardo, the Zoo, the Clark Planetarium, Aviary, and Aquarium in the state, as well in other states. And these organizations help foster an interest in STEM education. Vikrant and his twin Kanisha were selected to attend the #1 undergraduate business school in the USA, the Wharton School of Business, University of Pennsylvania. Vikrant plans to specialize in management, finance, and engineering. And just so you know, that he and his dad thought it was so important, and Senator Stephenson thought it was so important, that he flew out here today from Pennsylvania to accept the award for Senator Stephenson. So let's give a round of applause to Senator Stephenson.
One of the fun things about growing up in Utah is the number of institutions which we can go to on weekends. Growing up, my parents made a great effort to get us interested in science and technology. That meant weekly visits to the aviary and the zoo. As we grew older, my parents took us to the planetarium, dinosaur museum, and the aquarium. And my school also scheduled trips to various exhibitions across the state at our many museums. When my brother and I were young, we were fond of the dinosaur museum because it gave us a glimpse to what the world had been millions of years ago. It was hard to grapple with the idea that we could be walking on the same earth, that these beasts had roamed long before us. The museum was an eye-opening experience to creatures that were many times bigger than humans. And of course, I can't forget the dinosaur toys that entertained me for many months to come after visiting the museum. The Clark Planetarium was also one of my favorite places to visit. I could wander for hours looking at the different exhibits that explained basic scientific concepts. And then I could also go to the IMAX theater and watch many presentations that explained much of what happened in our solar system to make it much more understandable for somebody of a very young age. But one of my best memories from the planetarium was the weighing machine, which decided what your weight was on every planet. And I really do weigh quite a bit on Jupiter. Our visits to the animal-oriented institutions helped us understand nature better and the role of the environment in our lives. Whether it was chasing ducks at the aviary, feeding sharks at the aquarium, or watching peacocks strut around the zoo, there is something magical that happens to a kid. These experiences open our minds to things bigger than ourselves. When I was in middle school, my parents took us to the Leonardo to visit exhibits, including an exhibition on the Dead Sea Scrolls. I felt like an adventurer, wandering through the museum, looking at the various Middle Eastern artifacts, as made my way through the dimly lit corridors to the main exhibit. The Dead Sea Scrolls were quite a surprise, since they were able to remain in such good condition, considering they had been underground for so long. This exhibit was very educational and made me wonder what else could be lost to time and still awaits to be discovered. But on our school trips, we visited many places such as the Utah Natural History Museum many times. The museum was a great way for us to learn in depth about what we saw in the classroom and how to apply it to the real world. The interactive exhibits made it so much easier for a kid to understand about the importance of what we learn and how we can apply it to our own lives. And this museum is a great way to introduce students to different fields of study and pique their curiosity. But through road trips and school trips, I've been able to visit several historic sites in Utah. Since I was little, I have regularly visited the Wheeler Farm and had a blast. I ran around the big barn, looked at vegetables in the farmer's market, and just strolled around the grounds looking at the various buildings. The Helper Mining Museum is also an amazing place. The museum has done a great job preserving Utah's mining history. Wandering around the museum and the park next door, I have been able to see the many pieces of machinery that were used to excavate a mine and help bring Utah to where it is today. And at this the place, I was introduced to the homes and the history of the state and how the pioneers lived when they first came to Utah. But one memory that will always stay with me was when I was pulling the hand cars down the very narrow and rickety trails and seeing how hard the pioneers actually had to work to just bring us here and create the state where we live in today. These museums and many more have done an impressive job in preserving Utah's history so that my generation and the future generations will be able to see firsthand Utah's impressive history. From my many visits to these institutions in Utah, I have gained a greater understanding of history, science, and technology. This has helped to shape my worldview and has stimulated my interest in STEM fields. So to all the members in the audience who help run these great institutions, I have to thank you for all you do to help students like me and many others learn about our world and our role in it. Senator Howard Stephenson and my father have had quite a few conversations on education and what can be done to improve it. So when Senator Stephenson asked if I could receive this award on his behalf, I thought it would be a great honor to substitute for him in receiving this accolade. This award is for all the time Senator Stephenson has spent championing education for the greater good of the state, and the association could not have thought of a greater friend of Utah's education than Senator Howard Stephenson. Thank you.
I don't know, things have changed. I went to Skyline, they never took us to museums.